it's just, I love ASMR because it's so gentle, it's so soft, it's just, it really brings a wonderfulness to my life. I don't know if you can hear that. I'll do some tingles too. Wow. I did week 2 this week. This week was all about recovering a sense of identity. This week addresses self-definition as a major component of creative recovery. You may find yourself drawing new boundaries and staking out new territories as your personal needs, desires, and interests announce themselves. The essays and tools are aimed at moving you into a personal identity, a self defined by you. I covered going sane, which is really going sane, which was about defining your inner saboteur, like RuPaul says, and areas and moments where I doubt myself. And I was triggered a lot this past weekend of when I was doubting myself, and it really came from an area of fear. Fear that it wouldn't work out, fear that I wasn't capable. And when I started feeling that way, I wrote affirmations right away. And what's been great is that I'll use the ones that are already in the book, and you can just write, and I can share the affirmations that I've been writing a lot in the book, but she has really great ones in here. She also mentions another thing that I learned was Poisonous Playmates. As our artist's protective parent, my cat is climbing on my piano right now. As our artist's protective parent, we must learn to place our artist with safe compassion. Oh, safe companions. Toxic playmates can capsize our artist's growth. So it's really about recognizing the people who can stunt your growth and stunt your ability to be the artist that you want to be. And it was congruent with Crazymakers, which are people who are, artists themselves, but they create storms, they create chaos. When I read these two back to back, I immediately thought I was a poisonous playmate and I was a crazy maker. I'm sometimes still a crazy maker, but awareness is the first step. I thought immediately about a friend of mine who was performing and really doing it. She was writing songs, she was recording songs, she was performing weekly, sometimes a couple of times a week. And I was definitely a poisonous playmate because at that point in my life, I was trying to find the inner artist myself, and seeing somebody else do it triggered a lot of insecurities in me and negativity in me. And instead of me being supportive of my friend, I was a really shadow and a dark person and projected a lot of my insecurities to them, which I think ultimately brought them down. Safe to say that we are not really close friends anymore, and I don't blame her. But I was definitely a poisonous playmate, and I think this section was really important because it was this section that made me realize that I was that person. I know it's really easy to say somebody else is poisonous and somebody else is sabotaging you, but even though it's only been 2 weeks, the one thing that I have been thinking about this whole entire time that I've been reading is that I am my own worst enemy, and that I can be my own crazy maker and I can be my own poisonous playmate. fortunate to have people around me that is super supportive of my creative journey. I am the only one that gets in my way. So reading this made me identify the moments where I was a poisonous playmate and a crazy maker to someone else. And when I am that to myself, it's definitely a work in progress, but affirmations help. There was a section in week 1 where you had to write out blurts, excuse me, where you had to write out blurts, moment where you kind of put yourself down, and then you take those blurts and switch them into affirmations. So I kept saying to myself, I am my own worst enemy. I'm the only one stopping myself. I switched that to, I am my own best cheerleader, and I am my best supporter. I am the one that can move myself forward. And the trick is to write that 5 times, which I love because 5 is the number for change. So that is an affirmation that I have switched to myself from one of my blurts. To turn the page. The next thing that I went over was skepticism. And I think it's definitely incongruent with self-doubt. When you doubt yourself, or when I doubt myself, I'm not believing in my power. Oh, the one thing that I underlined under Crazymakers was this. I literally said this. I literally said, wow, right next to the paragraph. This is what it reads. As blocked creatives, we are willing to go to almost any lengths to remain blocked. As frightening and abusive as life with a crazy maker is, we find it far less threatening than the challenge of a creative life of our own. It's like this thing that my old boss used to say, deal with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't know. And it's definitely a cyclical, toxic thing. And I was like, yes, resonate. And as much as you are being exploited by your crazy maker, you too are using that person to block your creative flow. The next time you catch yourself saying or thinking, he, she is driving me crazy, ask yourself what creative work you are trying to block by your involvement. I love this book. The next part is skepticism, which is all of, I think in parallel with self-doubt. I wrote so much. I think one of the best stories, she includes her advice, she includes her teachings, but also stories. And she had mentioned how the universe is actually listening to us all the time. So when we are putting out that energy that we want to be creative, and that this is something that we want, the universe listens to us, but we're very quick to push it away like an opportunity or the very thing that we're asking for when it does come to us. See, she says any little bit of experimenting in self-nurturance is very frightening for most of us. When our little experiment provokes the universe to open a door or two, we start shying away. Think of your mind as a room, and the room is all of our usual ideas about life. The room has a door, and that door is ever so slightly ajar, and outside we can see a great deal of dazzling light. Out there in the dazzling light are a lot of new ideas that we consider too far out for us, and so we keep them out there. The ideas we are so comfortable with are in the room with us. The other ideas are out, and we keep them out. She mentions this example of a story that she mentions this guy named Mike, that Mike began his creative recovery, So she said he told himself that film school was distracting him from his real job of finding another job, and so he gave up filmmaking to look for another job. 2 years later, remembering this incident, Mike can shake his head at himself. One of the things, when the universe gave him what he wanted, he gave the gift right back. Eventually, he did let himself learn filmmaking, but he made it a lot harder on himself than the universe may have intended. One of the things most worth noting in a creative recovery is our reluctance to take seriously the possibility that the universe just might be cooperating with our new and expanded plans. We've gotten brave enough to try recovery, but we don't want the universe to really pay attention. We still feel too much like frauds to handle some success. When it comes, we want to go. I've been here before where I have asked for something and the universe has very kindly given it to me, and I have just pushed it away because it was too uncomfortable, too much work. It was just too much. And it took some tripping and falling for me to realize, like, oh my God, I asked for this. The other day, I was reminded that the very job that I have right now, I asked for. Everything about the job that I have right now, I asked for. And I am completely complaining about it. But I needed that in the face of like, hey, you asked for this, so reflect on that. But that's also this reminder of like, the universe is listening to me all the time. So I must choose my words wisely, but also be prepared for when I ask for something, I can easily manifest it and it will come. So be prepared. Be prepared. Oh, the next thing that I went over was attention, which was beautiful. She talked about her grandmother and how her grandmother would write these letters. Teaching survival lies in sanity, and sanity lies in paying attention. As I was reading this, I saw it as a reminder of being present at this very moment, this very now. It is exactly what I need to pay attention to. And the more you pay attention, the more you can connect the dots. Being present is something that I am working on constantly. I feel like as a mom, I'm always thinking about what to do next, how to prepare myself for success, so I'm always thinking 2-3 steps ahead. It could also be a trauma response to make sure nothing goes wrong. As I started doing more yoga and journaling and just taking more walks, not right now because it's cold, I started becoming more present. My favorite thing to do really is to, especially during work when things are like getting really crazy and it's my lunch break, I'll just go for a walk anywhere away from my desk and just kind of zone and just appreciate what's around me. I was able to do it a lot in the summer because it's easier to be outside. Right now, I'm learning how to be present in this current moment in time. And I do agree with like the more present you are, the more you are paying attention to this moment, the more you can connect the dots later of like what's making sense. Especially since this week 3 is all about It's all about synchronicities. My cat is like freaking out. On to the tasks. this week were this week was actually super different now that work has been on full swing. Well, week 2 was really different because it was a combination of New Year's Eve and then going back to work. So it was actually quite, like I needed to shift a little bit. But what I've learned from this week is that I'm actually going to start my weeks on a Monday and use Sunday as the day to reflect. So I am starting week 3 today. My favorite tasks this week were reading the affirmations and writing them 5 times each time. That was challenge number 5. List 20 things you enjoy doing and then take some of those and make it a goal for yourself. And I actually did 3 of them and I'm really happy and proud of myself. This was my favorite. It was really cool, so much so that I talked about it with my therapist. This is called the life pie. So she said, draw a circle and divide it into 6 pieces. Oh no, this isn't it. There was one that she's like, there it is. This was part of task 2. There, it initially started with like list 5 major activities and how much time did you give to each one, which were what you wanted to do and which one were shoulds. How much of your time is spent helping others and ignoring your own desires? Having any of your blocked friends triggered doubts in you? I think it's very easy to say that a lot of my shoulds and the stuff that I put time towards are like chores and responsibilities and work. So like life stuff, like in the program stuff. So it's things that I like can't really give up, at least not right now. I'm adapting. But part of that task was to take a sheet of paper, draw a circle, and then inside the circle place topics that you need to protect. And I loved that. I put music making, I put theater as one of them, I put yoga, like alone time for myself, listening to music. And then next to those things, place the names of those you must be self-protected around just for now. And that goes outside of the circle. I loved that because it was a nice visual representation of what I really wanted for myself. And it was scary to see the people that I needed to protect myself from, because these are people that that I'm around a good portion of my time. But I need to safely guard these things from them, which is actually kind of sad, but I accepted it. So that brought some sadness in those tasks, but it was nice to see it, and sometimes you really need that. I definitely needed it. One of the biggest things that in my check-in was question number 3 is, were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? And I wrote one down, and it was about balance. One thing that I struggle with is balance of anything. When I first started doing music, I became absolutely obsessed because it was something that I realized that I was actually quite good at. It was something that I enjoyed spending multiple hours on. I just wanted to do that and only that. But it got difficult because I had other life things that also needed attention, like my own mental health, my daughter, my home, my job. And I can't push those away. So my problem is that I am it's either this end of the spectrum or this end of the spectrum, no in between. And so balancing has been quite difficult for me. balance isn't really about like keeping it balanced. It's that one day this side might be up here and the other day this might be up here. It's always going to be like this. It's never going to be this. It's always going to be this. And sometimes one thing will be heavier than the other, but as long as it can be in this equilibrium state, it can be fine. When it's like this, that's a problem. And I've always put music up here when I really need to put balance music and making my creative work to balance with everything else. So I wrote down like balancing the desire to create and doing that along with making time for other things. An hour a day keeps the sanity. I wrote an hour a day keeps the insanity away. So I think my balance this week was I didn't get to read every day, and I didn't get to do all the challenges every day. But the days that I did have time, I dedicated extra time to the book and doing some work. And I felt really proud of myself for that. I will say that ever since starting the book, I have been doing a lot more creatively. I started editing a interview that I did months ago with a friend of mine. I actually made a song over the weekend that had to do with balance, and I'm just starting to think about all the wonderful things that I do want to do creatively and where it's going to live and how it's going to live and breathe. And I'm utilizing what I'm learning at work and setting it up for myself, like how to market myself, how to do email lists, how to organize my content. So it's all really connected. I think the biggest thing again is allocating the time and understanding that I'm not going to have time to do these things every single day. But if I can dedicate an hour for this on this day and an hour for something else on another day, and just kind of allow myself to keep cycling, like circling through, then I'll be fine. And remind myself that rest is also something that I can allocate time for, because rest is also productive. Rest is important. So that was my week 2 review of The Artist's Way ASMR style. If you are going through The Artist's Way, I would love to connect with you, especially if you're a mom. If you're not a mom, that's okay. I still want to hear from you. But I would also like to hear from you if you're a mom.